What is the sound of one hand clapping? What is the sound of one fist punching? What is the sound of the IronCast? Good evening, students, or good morning, depending on when you listen to this podcast. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Yes. Skinny Rich, he's basically the Danny Rand of Southgate Media. Tonight's episode, The Blessing of Many Fractures. Season 1, Episode 7. Directed by Kevin Tancharoen. Tancharoen. Written by Scott Buck. Created by Scott Buck. Written by Tamara Betcher. And written by our staff writer. Written by was Tamara Betcher. Dwayne Worrell is our staff writer, as often. Okay.
So, who do you think is more to blame, the staff writers or the other writers?
Well, the staff writers is put in charge of polishing. Now, it's always that question: is it a see? Like here's what I'm gonna say, and I saw it again when I was doing my rewatch on this. And something I noticed that between when I'm watching it on my computer screen, when I watch it on my phone. Now, when I'm watching it on my phone, I'm kind of like, it's a smaller screen. I might even be doing other things while I'm watching it. I don't notice these things. But when I watched it on the computer screen, I'm sitting there just in front of the computer screen. And all these jumpy cuts keep on jumping at me, keep on popping at me. I know it's not anything about the feed because when I was doing it, I was on my I actually plugged in, I actually dug out my old DSL to plug it in just so I'm not even worrying about Wi-Fi at the moment. So, I noticed that, it's all still these real jumpy cuts and, these real cheap and poorly done editing tricks of a low budget production. I mean, honestly, here's what I'll tell you. There's this, the reason why Iron Fist exists is because Kung Fu films were a thing. And I don't know if someone said, hey, let's do this homage to B Kung Fu films and have it with a bunch of shaky cuts. In the middle, because in the middle of the scene, you'll like suddenly go from one angle to another angle as the guy's saying his line, and that's something you would do because you only had a good take in one angle and not the other. And rather than doing an actual transition, you just said that. It continues. It continues. And then some folk who got obsessed with the genre started saying, "Oh no, that's intentional." It's like, well, it's intentional in the sense that they did it and they knew what it was going to do. They just didn't care. But yeah, so honestly, here's what I'll tell you: on many levels, I still think it's a fairly well written show.
For sure.
I mean, it still has a lot of comic book logic, a lot of weird things that just, that are just so happens to be kind of moments. There's a lot of MacGuffinism in this, which is that, whatever it is that needs to happen for the plot is happening to forward it forward.
Right.
But you know what? I don't necessarily fault that, It's like when people point out that Indiana Jones is relatively superfluous to the story of Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is a fun thing for overly smart nerds to rant about, except it doesn't matter that he's superfluous to the story. He actually serves a purpose in the story as it unfolds, and at the end of the day, it's a fun ride, and this is still a fun ride,
It is.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think we're just spoiled by how good the rest of the Marvel catalog is on Netflix.
Well, yeah. Well, like I always say, it's the Suicide Squad effect. If you make so many bad films, your good films look so much better. And when you make,
sorry, go ahead.
And we make good films, your mediocre films look so much worse.
Right. I will say that though, this is nowhere near as bad as Suicide Squad.
No, it's not anywhere near as bad as Suicide Squad. But Suicide Squad was more popular because people were certainly waiting for something to latch on to say this is good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just to show that it's not really a Marvel versus DC thing. You up until Iron Man, you could have called that the Marvel effect. Or the Incredible Hulk effect, which is that there were so many bad movies that Marvel put out that when Marvel put out a decent product, like the Incredible Hulk in the 70s, it got elevated well beyond how good it is. You know? And likewise, or you call it the Blade effects, or the X-Men effect, or the Amazing Spider-Man effect. But before those films came out, honestly, before Bryan Singer's X-Men, the idea of a decent Marvel film was intentionally laughable. But once they started having things that were actually not horrible, Marvel fans started to go, oh, this means something, Like so much of Richard Dreyfuss's Mashed Potatoes, it means something. This means we're moving forward on something good. And for Danny Rand, unfortunately, he is the step back for many reasons we've gone over many times.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it a bad
And I'm sure we'll go over a bunch tonight.
Well, here's something I will say that I found really interesting. I got to make sure I remember it, because in my rewatch, I just caught this aspect of it.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, is that supposed to be a cross-property tie-in?
The opening?
No, the end. Near the very end.
Uh-huh.
When the super elite ninja hand accidentally stabbed themselves with her own weapons. Because apparently it was Roy's day off, so they had to call in Charlie, and Charlie, he's third string. Everyone knows he's third string, but he's still officially the hand, so he was ready to be there. And
right.
Anyway, but they stabbed, and then they show you this close up on their face, and I noticed they had this marking of the black veins moving up the face.
Mm-hmm.
And what it reminded me of is in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when they shoot someone with a night-night gun with the dendrotoxin.
Oh.
Which is the thing that shuts down your nervous system. That was sort of developed by Bruce Banner. And of course here we have some, and I'm wondering if that's supposed to be like this similar, if the similarities are intentional, that this is supposed to be sort of the hands version of the dendrotoxin.
Right. It is lethal, though, right?
Well, it's an interesting question with lethality in the hand. Is it lethal, or does it just put you in a spot where you will die if nothing, if something doesn't, we don't really know. We're going to assume it will kill you. But
right.
it just struck me as interesting when I noticed that they were highlighting the black veins, and like I said, very similar to the way that the veins turn black and get highlighted when someone gets shot by a night-night gun. So that was kind of fun for me on the rewatch. When you do the rewatch, you often see things you missed the first couple times, which can be to its betterment, like this, or its detriment, like remembering how poorly edited this show is.
Right.
And again, this was like, and just to give to our opener, okay, right. So big things in the opener. First off, we get our cross tie-in where we get someone received a love letter
from Seagate.
Yes, Seagate Prison, censored inmate mail. Or did it say uncensored inmate mail? I don't know, but it was inmate mail.
Right, and it did say Lucas's name on it.
Oh, it did? Okay, yeah. It was on there so quick I couldn't read it because it's all handwritten,
Yeah, I paused and I had to read the letter and the envelope had Carl Lucas's name. I just said Lucas.
Yes, very cool. Yeah, so clearly Claire and Power Man still itching for that coffee.
Yeah.
Now
see, this brings up some interesting timeline questions. Like, at this point, is Iron Man Iron Man? Excuse me. Is Carl Lucas in jail? Is he in Seagate?
Yeah, this is post, because he still had to serve out his sentence. So
that's right.
What we can assume from this, this is supposed to be relatively short on the heels. Because we assume that because we found the folder that we're going to get Carl out of there.
Right.
Although, this was kind of one of these moments that kind of struck me as like, and I can think of reasons why not to do it, but it just kind of struck me as weird. Like, you're about to go fight the Hand. Claire Temple doesn't really want to go fight the Hand. Doesn't say, hey, you know what? Have you guys ever broken someone out of prison? You guys are a couple of ninjas, right? You can break people out of prison.
Right.
So make a little quick detour, get my boyfriend back, and then we'll have him come and punch Madame Gao.
Right. I mean, it seems like a damn good idea.
Yeah, but of course, you know what it is, and this is actually, I think, one of the problems with Iron Fist. In both Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, there's this important thing that the writers knew to do, which is don't let your African American or your female character get overshadowed by other people. You can't have Carl Lucas or even I'm forgetting his name now, but Nuke. Kill the Purple Man. You can't have everyone else do it. It has to be Jessica who does it. Likewise with Luke Cage, you can't have him call in Jessica Jones for backup because he's the star and he has to be the one to save it. And because because they were also, minority characters, it also follows suit that, it was very important that they not be shown as subordinate to other types of heroes that might have reinforced stereotypes. Now, for Danny Rand, he's a rich white kid, but you also don't want him to just be totally the jobber in the show. You want him to be the hero. But that means that these kind of cool female characters and other characters of color kind of have to take a back seat so that Danny can get his stuff together, it's not the worst case scenario, but it is, to me, it's kind of obvious that that's one of the problems that they hit with this show, is that because they have to raise up, because they don't want Danny Rand to seem as a guest star in his own story, they do have to have him be the guy who is the proactive hero. But at the same time, I do kind of think that maybe it might have been better had they let someone else be a little more proactive here and there,
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, we again see that, Danny, he may be the Iron Fist, but he is not yet ready to lead the way, as it were.
Right.
Not
ready to do much.
Yeah. And it's pretty clear that Gao is totally, aware of this, and Gao is very much Madame Gao's live a very long time. She can wait Danny out. She knows that he is weak and he is looking to slow the story, and she figures that given enough time, Danny will come to her way of thinking. Then she will have the Iron Fist as her minion as well.
Right. Seems like as she did before, right?
Yeah. That's an interesting question. Now, we're supposed to get, I believe from, spoilers I read, there's supposed to be something with, a 1940s Iron Fist in here. A Golden Age Iron Fist. That they show at some other point. Who's in the traditional... from what I understand, there's a photo of him.
Oh.
But I don't know where we see it. So it's sort of like the Wonder Woman thing, but I don't know if they actually, stop the entire show to as they did with Batman: Dawn of Justice. I'm sorry. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, where they stop the whole show to say, "See, here's other characters. Here's some fan service." I don't know if they're actually going to stop the whole show to give us the fan service. So we may have to go and just keep an eye out for that. You're going to see the guy in the collar and the jumpsuit with the bandana around his face. But we'll keep an eye out for it. And if any of our loyal listeners have already spotted it, please write back and let us know when it occurred.
Right.
Moving right along. This is a very Danny-centric story, or it's a very Iron Fist-centric story, but there is actually a nice little side story with Meacham and Danny. Ward and Danny.
Yes.
And then a really neat one with Ward and Joy.
Yeah, that was probably the only good part of the episode. Well, aside from the action sequences. As far as dialogue and as far as substance go, that was really, really interesting, that conversation and the whole thing that happened between them.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. So what happens, of course, is Ward and Joy are being forced out.
Yeah.
And so we'll do this part first, because actually I was going to touch back to Danny and Ward.
Right.
But here we have Ward and Joy being forced out. And then Ward starts talking to Joy about, what were your dreams?
Right.
What did you want? Our lives have been prescribed by this company for so long,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should try and get away. Maybe we should try and find our own way. And, of course, what happens is, and this I thought was the most interesting aspect of it, is Joy doesn't want to sell. Ward does, because all Ward has ever wanted was to get out of this company.
Right.
So he's going to get a golden parachute and all this other stuff. He's like, yeah, I'm out please, please don't let the door hit me where the good Lord split me. He is ready to get out the door. But Joy is the one who doesn't want to, and this is what I thought was the most interesting aspect of it. So Ward goes behind Joy's back to talk to our Lucian Fox pastiche, our noble black man who runs the company. He goes to talk to him to essentially stab Joy in the back and put himself as the guy who wants to sell out, and force Joy out, that's fine, but I want out. I'm happy to sign. And what he finds out is that Joy, without consulting him, rejected the offer. Just flat out rejected it. Says, we are not selling under any situation. And then when Ward confronts Joy on this, it turns out she's got like blackmail tapes for days on the other board members.
Yeah.
That's why she's not afraid, Right. And you realize that she was just that far ahead of the game on this. Well, Ward is all flat-footed. And what I thought was interesting about that was, of course, prior to this, we get a great scene of Ward and Danny together, where basically Ward is blaming Danny for Howard's death. We all know what really happened.
And that just speaks to how inept he is. That wasn't a thought that occurred to him. It was a suggestion posited by Danny. And he's like, hey, you know what? Yeah, you're responsible. I'll just go with it. He didn't expect Danny to be there. Danny just comes and finds the blood and says, you know what? This is my fault. And that's the sweetest words Ward could have heard. He just says, yeah, you're the problem.
Yeah, and I actually kind of missed that, which is, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was actually thinking that and for what I'll say is, I still think he actually manipulates Danny really well then.
Oh, yeah.
Because he really breaks down the whole situation and leaves Danny kind of guilt-racked.
Right.
Ward says, now I have to go and mourn my father for a second time.
For a second, right?
Yes. And now what I loved about this scene was I really started to think Ward had the potential to be a good Darth Vader. But then he goes and tries to betray Joy and find out Joy's already betrayed him. And he finds out that Joy has got dirt on everybody else.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is that she seems to have done this having taken a page out of supposedly Ward's book. And she did this because she learned it from him, because she looks up to him a lot. I thought that was such a powerful and sad scene where she just lays everything out. You're the one I admire the most. Everything I did, even this blackmail thought, was based on what I thought you would do. And he just sits there and has to hear this. And it's just another big piece of evidence that he is nothing. Everything that she admired about him was all his father's orders. Everything that he did, every time he was proven right, that wasn't him. He was just a lackey. And that's got to hurt so bad.
Well, yeah.
That's got to hurt so bad.
And that's what is the beauty of the whole situation.
And the funny thing is, she's the one that took, direction from Harold Meacham indirectly, but built upon that and became something of herself,
Yeah.
It should have been her all along.
Honestly, I'm almost in a mindset here. I don't know how it ends, and I doubt they'll be this creative. Would not surprise me if Ward winds up being the guy who runs the company for Danny. And Joy winds up being the one that's sort of tossed to the side because she got too dang supervillainy, or she winds up hanging out with the Hand at the end of the story.
I'm a little afraid that they're not going to do very much with Joy's character. They've got such an incredible opportunity with such a great actress and a great storyline that they built, but they're just going to maybe toss it by the wayside. I hope they do something strong with her.
Yeah, well, the reality is up until now they have been very, they've worked very hard to take away, Joy's agency, much in the same way they've taken away Colleen's agency here and there, and everybody's agency. Honestly, here's what I'll say: all the female characters, even in this episode, Claire to Luke, winds up in this almost subordinate role again, where it's like, oh yeah, we are defined by the men in our lives, and that is frustrating. Yeah. After everything we've gotten up to this point, being back to, we are defined by the men in our lives, it's like, really? Okay. But we are where we are. And, that's both the positive and negative of the story, I suppose. Anyway, we first get our nice little Lady Macbeth moment with Ward when they're getting the initial offer of the golden parachute, and we see that there's like blood trickling down his, the blood is spurting on his shirt cuffs.
Now, what is that about? Is that like a physical, real thing, like he's hallucinating it, or is it more of a metaphor that he's thinking about it? Is that like a tactic, or is that something that he's really experiencing?
I think it's something he is actually experiencing in the sense that he is hallucinating it. I don't think it's real, but I do think that he is seeing it happen. And like I said, this is a reference to Lady Macbeth. After her and her husband kill Malcolm, and Lady Macbeth is like, when they first kill him, she's like, I just need, a small bowl of water to wash the blood off my hands, where Macbeth is saying, the oceans will not wash this blood away. And then later we have Lady Macbeth having her nightmare scene where she is speaking of the spot on her hand that she cannot make the spot disappear, and says, out, damn spot, out. And that, I think, is what we're referencing here. Of course, then they kind of overdo it again when Ward decides to take Joy to show her where her father has been, and all of a sudden blood starts flowing everywhere like something out of The Shining.
Yeah. And that's what made me think that maybe it's a metaphor, because once he got to the door, he realized that if he tells her what was really happening, he also has to tell her that he killed her father, so it's maybe that's why he walked away, but I guess it was, just the freak outness by seeing the blood.
Yeah, well, I think you're right that it is certainly purely internal, because of course Joy doesn't see the blood.
Right.
But more to the point, I think that it comes off as very, very, well, first, like I said, it's very derivative of Shakespeare, and more to the point, I kind of feel like it is something that is growing in him. It's sort of his telltale heart, If you've ever heard, for our listeners who haven't read The Telltale Heart, please go read it. It's an American classic, and it's the idea of the guy who kills a man and puts his heart under the floorboards, but then he keeps on hearing the heart beating, and as the cops come to talk to him about his friend who disappeared, all of a sudden the beating gets louder and louder and louder, and he's like, how can you not hear it, and then eventually he thinks they're just trying to play a mind game with him, and so he rips up the floorboards to show them the heart, and then they arrest him. Undone by his own guilt. And that is, I think, is where Ward is. And of course, after Ward has his last freak out, then Joy is like, oh, okay, my hophead brother is really not someone I can really honestly, I can't honestly deal with him right now. She literally can't even.
Right. Well, I think it's. I mean, like what he says to her as he exits the building is incredibly harsh and hurtful. And man, it was intense.
Oh yeah.
Like I can't imagine that she would know what to do with herself at that point, because I mean, partial, of what he said was maybe kind of true, but also he's the only person she has. He's the only person she has, and then for him to turn away, what does she do? What is she left with?
Yeah. Although not for nothing, when he, she makes a valid point when he was like, yeah. I need the money because I have financial problems, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, I didn't even know that until 5 seconds ago, and now you're acting like I understand why she feels like, what just happened,
Right.
We were kind of getting along, and all of a sudden he completely freaked out. So I think as far as she's concerned, Ward is a paranoid, delusional schizophrenic, and, she doesn't have that much time for that. Back with Rand, with Danny, Claire, and Colleen, they're flying over the Himalayas again, because of course Gao, as we learned in the last episode, went to the place that his father was going the day he was murdered. And of course, Danny starts having a panic attack on the plane, which is very reasonable that he would have a panic attack on the plane. But they do manage to calm him down, and they do a nice thing there about controlling your anger, controlling your fears, your basic Jedi mind trick kind of thing there. And that was
but
neat.
He's so far from, showing any signs of being able to control anything, let alone his emotions or anything, He says it there too. I spent 15 years mastering my body, mind, and my emotions. Well, it doesn't show at all.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, he's like, when the scene where he loses it on the guy watching the door, and he's just wailing away on his face, and then he stops and he's just whimpering and crying like a little baby. It's just so infuriating.
Although to that, I do want to call out our drunken master.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and again, this is one of these moments where you get the idea that there is this effort to do this callback to classic kung fu theater,
Yeah.
And the Fist of the Drunken Master and all that kind of idea. And I loved what he said. It's like, I've got a dragon inside me too, but I got to keep mine sedated. Because if my dragon gets out, bad things happen.
Yeah.
And I hope we see that character again. He seemed a lot of fun. I liked him.
Indeed. And he's got to have some sort of supernatural powers too, to some effect, some degree.
I guess, he's got, that's like I said, like we've said, I think that is the thing that is most annoying about this hand is that they went from magical ninjas who turned to dust to, Madame Gao and a bunch of thugs, as if she was just so much of a, as if the term Madam was because she was, she ran the best little whorehouse in Pyongyang, as they say, and, and it almost seems like a demotion from where she was with the Kingpin,
Yeah.
You just don't feel like, that was the thing. When Madame Gao was in Daredevil,
you felt threatened.
Yeah, and and it's the same old. It's just the same old lady.
Yeah.
But you could feel the presence of what the Hand was. But because in this series we have to fight the Hand, it's hard to keep the Hand as a scary monster.
Right, and it's not even her fault, the actress's fault. She's doing a phenomenal job. It's just a shame that she has to be surrounded by such a poorly told narrative.
Yeah, and that is it. It is. You can't, here's what I'll say. Some actors can rise above bad material. And some bad material will weigh down even the best actors,
Exactly.
It's
exactly.
like, doesn't matter how much helium you put in the balloon, it's not going to lift the Eiffel Tower. And
which is why one of my little guilty pleasures in this episode was Claire telling Danny off.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so welcome. It was like voicing my thoughts exactly.
Oh yeah, well, and because she does make some great points of like, what are we gonna do? And like, let's say we get her, and we it's gonna be a real awkward plane ride back. It does present what I always like to say is the essential superheroic conundrum. What do you do? Because it's like, okay, we can't kill them. But they're a sociopathic murderer, so let's hope this all works out for the best.
Yeah, and I love that, when they finally land in China and they're sitting there on a stakeout, what's the one thing you do on a stakeout? You sit and you wait. You wait. That's what you do. That's what a stakeout is. And he cannot master his emotions even a little bit. He's like, I can't wait. I'm going to go grab a guard and force him to talk or bleed. It's like, he's such a child.
Yeah. Well, that is that's the conundrum. Yeah. Honestly, something like that, I guess you kind of get in the idea that, you want to have the action, but the way you normally do that is you just have coincidentally the person show up. And not for nothing, even then, even after he goes and makes a decision, the person still coincidentally shows up. It's like, okay,
right.
Now they're here.
You know what else really, really, I thought maybe there's a reason for it, but maybe not. They're deep in the heart of, some industrial city in China, and there's a beggar on the side of the road, and Colleen goes and tries to talk to him in Mandarin, I assume, and he turns around and starts speaking to her in English without ever looking at her. And even if he did, how would he know that she spoke English or that she was an American? How many people walk up to him, and
that's the
there's a reason
master
to speak to them in English. No, not the drunken master. His I bought because he's exotic and whatever.
No, okay, yeah. You know what? I actually got those two characters a little confused.
Yeah.
I kind of got the feeling that whoever that guy was, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that guy winds up maybe being Davos later.
Ooh.
Danny's best friend who we don't see around here, that maybe he went out once to fight the Hand and never came back. Because he definitely seems like a guy who's been given a lot of really... He was clearly a guy who basically crossed the Hand in the past, and his punishment is he is now the drunken beggar here. Or he's now the beggar here, That's his job now, because that's all the Hand will let him do.
Right.
At least that's, to me, that, like I said, that seems to be the best reading of that scene. Is that what was going on? Now, if we never see him again, then, we never see him again.
Yeah. But I would say that's the kindest reading of that scene.
Yeah. Well, like I said, everything he says suggests that he is there because of the Hand, that he has a beef with the Hand. You know, the idea that the hand has hurt him, that the hand is the reason he's a blind beggar. Now, along those same lines, maybe it's a situation where he was a member of the hand, thought he was all that, you know, was going to be a golden boy, and then, you know, someone throws acid in his face. And yeah, he's the hand, but he, you know, they're not going to waste all their magic on giving him eyes, and now he's the disgruntled, you know, low-level employee, has to play the hobo role, because as it seems, the hand is not above employing hobos or people who are living a hobo life to stab folks with their hobo knife when people who are too nosy come around. So, you know, maybe he's the Sergeant Schultz of the hand. Maybe he's a guy who was wronged by the hand. Who knows? But I mean, I'd like to think that maybe something bigger will come of the character, but we'll have to see.
Not gonna hold my breath.
Yeah, me neither. Anyway, so they do go. They go into the lab and say, "Oh, here's the lab where I guess they make drugs of some sort." Because none of us have a master's degree in chemistry, so goodness knows what we're looking at. But we're going to go along with it.
Weren't they making like that goofy heroin that wakes you up?
Yeah. That's the whole shtick of it. It's the dragon heroin.
Right.
Which of course it makes for a fun line there, because of course, you know, riding the white dragon, as they say, or chasing the white dragon.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, so the people come. Madame Gao shows up. They realize they're trapped. Madame Gao says, you know, that Denny can fight his way out, and if he, you know, but the women will be dying. That if he just surrenders, they can have a nice, quick, merciful death. But he doesn't, so, you know, we move on from there, and and of course the bad guys wind up stabbing themselves because they're not good at bad guying. You know?
Right, she got Abbott and Costello as her bodyguards.
Oh, yeah. Abbott! Yeah, it was...
It was so silly. It was almost like I would like to believe that it's not such a terrible show and that Gao is planning something that she planned to give herself up. Because if that's not where the story's really going, that was just so terrible. I mean, like, she obviously has powers. Didn't she, in an earlier episode, like, Chi-Force strike somebody across the room? She has powers, but...
Well, I mean, yeah, when she fought Daredevil, she was a match for Daredevil.
Right.
Now, I don't know if she has an Iron Fist. She may just have basic 1-inch punch powers, you know?
Yeah.
You know? Which I actually, to this day, I say 1-inch punch is mostly just sleight of hand. Which is that.
Yeah, but if she has so much regard and so much respect for the power of the Iron Fist, why wouldn't she just get up and get out of there? Why did she show up to confront him with 2 lowly guards?
Because,
you know, how could she be so stupid?
Well, then again, like you say, it is because maybe she wanted it to be believable enough. I mean, honestly, I think when she thought the Iron Fist was going to splinter her, I thought you had a real look of like, oh, I think I miscalculated this scene a bit.
Yeah, okay, I can buy that.
But of course, what happens is she didn't miscalculate it because Danny is corrupt enough to leave Kunlun, apparently we're calling it now, as opposed to Kunlun, as we always pronounced it when I was a kid. But, you know, we used to call them the Himalayas. Now they're Himalayas again. Because they were the Himalayas,
the
then became the Himalayas. And now I believe they're back to being the Himalayas.
Right.
You know. Anyway. But yeah, so, you know, Danny shatters the wall, and then she just turns around and walks with him. So, yeah, you know, there's a very strong possibility that there is a sort of like Loki in Avengers thing where, you know, wait, why are you still hanging around? When we got distracted, aren't you trying to escape? And it's like, maybe. Yeah, so they take her back to the States, and that's the end of the hand forever. So glad we solved that problem.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but yeah, and that's really it. That is the end of it. That is, they literally walk off into the. Wait a minute. Well, I guess technically the sunrise, because the sun wouldn't be setting in that angle from China.
Right. Okay.
You know? So they're walking
just
off
a foggy sunrise.
Yeah, except that would be
smoggy sunrise.
Yeah, the problem is that part of the. I mean, yeah, it's the sunrise, although it clearly was bright day before they started fighting. So, yeah, it was weird, and of course, Denny's got the SUV. He doesn't have a decent car, so life continues. Okay. Yeah. Any final thoughts?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm as far as what I'm looking forward to in the next episode. It's like this story is with Gao and Danny is just so ridiculous that I just want to see it through just to see what happens. But as far as what I'm really interested in how this plays out is how Joy plays that blackmail footage. And because I remember when she was sitting across the table from the executive and she's like, when I'm sitting across that table, I will not be this kind. Keep that in mind. And it was just like, ooh, and now you see why she mentioned that and that she knew right then that she would in fact be on the other side of that table. And I can't wait to see that happen.
Yeah. And that is great. Yeah, I mean, it is I do think this show has its strengths,
Sure.
It certainly has great characters and great acting. It's just that when they try to tell a story that they hit their wall. But hopefully that's just a learning curve. I got nothing else to say about this episode, Mozz. If people would like to reach out to you and touch you, how can they do so?
Well, they can reach out to me on Facebook or email me at Gmail at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me under Mozz Manzor on Facebook. It's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, I am, as always, Charlie, the Professor Esser. You can write to me in that old-fashioned email way at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And, of course, we can drill into the center of the earth as we need to. I have no idea where I'm going with all this. Follow me on the Twitter at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's in the middle for quality. So, it's getting late, and I think I'm starting to fall asleep, and I'm got a weird thing going on in my head. So, you're tired when you start talking, and then your dream brain starts talking. And you realize, perhaps there's great wisdom in the dream brain. Not mine. So, students, before we all fall asleep, let us meditate upon this wisdom. The path to Kunlun, or Kunlun, is not a path to a door, but a road leading forever to the horizon.